Okay, so I was encountering an error. I had to stop the video for a minute to see what was going on with it. But it looks like actually there's a bug in ZBrush where sometimes after using Projection Master, you can no longer sculpt. And so obviously that's not intended functionality. But you can get around it by just going to Preferences and then Init ZBrush. And that can get you out of having issues where tools have stopped working. I'd actually had the tools stop working entirely, so I wasn't able to sculpt on anything, and that was really, really bad. So, okay, let's get back to where we were in the lesson. So basically, the first thing I wanted to do was I wanted to essentially just like pull out these stone slabs a little bit, and then I wanted to like jazz them up a bit. But so I'm going to make my brush really large. I'm going to make my focal shift really high, and I'm going to make my Z intensity really low, like 3 or something like that. And actually, sorry, I need my focus shift to be -100. And then what I can do is basically I can just like kind of lift the pieces out of the frame, and then I can go ahead and kind of smooth it out too. So if I smooth these, then you see they look like they're kind of like more naturally receding. Then I can go through and I can start making some general kind of bumpy shapes on these. So I'm going to go through a few different passes, but the first thing I want to do is I'm going to set it to a more reasonable circular shape. I'm going to make the intensity really, really super low. Maybe a little bit, not quite at that low, but and I'm going to go in and I'm start making some rough shape differences here, just so that they look a little bit more abnormal. Then I'm going to go through, I'm going to use the clay tubes brush, and then in my alphas, I think I'm going to use this alpha 15. I'm going to reduce my brush size. Hold down Alt, drag, zoom things in a little bit. Make sure I'm using a very moderate Z intensity. Then I'm going to hold down Alt. I'm going to basically make it like I'm kind of digging into these chunks here. So I'm kind of making it look like, oops. Gotta kind of smooth that out a little bit. So I'm gonna have to be careful with how much of an edit I make here. But essentially, my goal is to make these look like they're getting kind of ground into along the edges. And oh, I accidentally switched to the blob brush. That's not correct at all. Okay, so that was part of why that was looking so wrong there. So with clay tubes and this alpha brush, I'm going to go through I'm basically trying to dig in. And I can go in and I can make some little cuts and things actually on the middle of the surfaces too. And I can adjust. I'm going through and I'm basically making a few different sizes and shapes of wear and tear. And in the long run, this will give me flexibility to make the kind of shapes that I'm trying to make. So I'm just adjusting my brush sizes and going through and making several passes at this. And what I'm basically doing here is kind of equivalent to making like edge wear on surfaces. So you want to kind of make it like non-uniform, but at the same time, you really want to focus on hitting the edges so that they'll look like they've been kind of worn out. And the good thing is because like I made this kind of as a polished out shape first, I can go and I can make the edges look chunked up a lot easier. And you can also do a little bit of build-up too, but for the most part I'm doing subtraction. I'm just trying to make sure that I don't hit everywhere so that it doesn't look like I'm just making like a straight solid line of edge wear across the entire thing. I'm just going along and I'm trying to make these look unique, which is why I'm doing all of the different parts here. It's because I could like make a single piece and then just like tile it or repeat it or something, but I think it would be better not to do that. I'm actually going in and where I can, digging little chunks out in the middle sections too, and I'm not sure if I love all of those details, but this is kind of a rough example piece, so you can kind of get an idea of how it works. Then I'm going to reduce the size. Give it more focal shift. And I'm going to go through and I'm cutting indentations in the actual pieces. Maybe a little bit small. So then I can make a couple of stray marks here and there. Okay, so that should give you an idea. And actually, because I'm a fan of adding noise, let's take a look at what we can do by adding procedural noise to this as well. So, so if I go ahead to the noise option, zoom in here a bit, so I can see what that noise looks like. Then we can go ahead and we can start making a few patterns here. So there we go. That's actually something that looks pretty good. then I can go ahead and actually just like roughly apply that onto the surface to give it a little bit more intensity. And then I can apply it to the mesh when I feel like it's been enough. And that just gives it a little bit more ambience. Okay, so now the last bit that I need to finish off this piece is I want to start making the inside grout. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and hit Control and then click in the area outside the mask. And then I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I've got my... let me take a look at the brushes options that I have and go to standard. I think dots should be fine. Then I'm going to go to alpha, and actually this time I want to make kind of a spotted alpha effect, and I think actually alpha 8 might work pretty well for this. Oops. I keep using the wrong hotkeys. I'm used to Maya hotkeys. So S to change the brush size. Let's see, so basically I'm going in and I'm painting the kind of grout into the middle section. And I'm just trying to make it look noisy right now, so I'm kind of painting a broad stroke. But you can see, just as an example here, of like why masks are as useful as they are. Because like this would have been really, 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 really hard to try to do if I were not using a mask, because I wouldn't be able to paint into any of the right spots, right? So I would have to like watch out that I wasn't painting over the part that I didn't want to edit. Got cats trying to steal my beverages. Okay, so now I can take a look at it from the front if I want to get an idea of how this looks. So I think I might actually need to be more subdivisions. I'm not sure. I'm just going to go to geometry. Yeah, actually, I do need to have a few more subdivisions. It's going to be a little bit more challenging to try to do that. So I'm not going to worry about that too much. It's not perfect, but it's okay. Now I'm jumping into this this new alpha. I'm going to increase the size a bit. Okay, and this alpha is kind of like a kind of veiny looking. I think that might actually be a little much. I think I'm going to reduce the Z intensity on that. So I'll probably still use it, but I can use it a little more sparingly than that. Okay, so okay. So yeah, actually, I think for now, I mean that's not a bad first pass at creating a and creating a floor surface. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to export these. And then, but I also want to save this, I'm going to save it as a tool. So I'm going to update my floor quads tool. I can also go ahead and save project, floor. Okay. So yeah, we've got our floor piece here, and then we've got the wall piece that we just did. And what we can do is we can then export these. So I exported the wall high poly. So I'm now going to export the floor high poly. Okay, and then really just the last bit that we have here is getting this set up to actually make a bake out of. And that should actually be pretty quick, so I'll just show you how to set that up in XNormal, and then you'll be able to see taking these surface details and applying them to a low poly mesh. Okay, so that'll be in the last video here. So that'll wrap this up in the ZBrush portion.